How did I end up with giant bowl of candy in front of my seat?
About 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Brian Kazaska.
You're welcome, Paul McNeil.
Picks up everybody.
Oh, come on. Wait, have you guys connected? Oh my gosh, Missy and Amy? Did they build a new house? Ooh. Are you guys building a new house? Oh. Belchertown just gives land away, right? Whoever wants it. I'm trying to find the 15th. It just hasn't been coming up. Oh, is that you? That was so fast. It's because you have a big, strong computer. That's why. There we go. We're ready to choose. Yeah. How many choose do you have to go? Sandy's having me. People are gonna go around.
About 1 minute. 1 minute.
1 minute, folks. Can I get hair and makeup?
Hair and makeup coming. Hold on. Stand by.
Yeah, I'm ready. These are the old standards. Yeah. Yeah, anyone can. People should come up to the seats.
Okay. Ready, Paul?
I'm ready. Yeah.
All right. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, folks at home. Thank you for joining us for the quarterly Close Community Coalition meeting, where everyone from the community is involved and invited to join us to discuss youth substance use prevention and the strategies of the Close Community Coalition. Tonight, we had a special meeting planned and focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging in Longmeadow Public Schools and for Longmeadow youth. And so we're going to be discussing some data around student protective and risk factors, students who identify as BIPOC or LGBTQAI+, and we're going to be discussing what that data means and the impact of that data. And we have a bunch of wonderful sector leaders at the meeting tonight, and we're excited to get started. But I'd love for folks to just go around, introduce themselves, their name, the sector that they represent, if it's business or if it's a school or if it's a healthcare practice or something, and then explain why you're here tonight. And I would love to start with to my left.
Hi, I'm Nilda Arizari. I'm the Director of Student and Family Support for Longmeadow Public Schools, and I'm here tonight to share the wonderful work that Longmeadow Public Schools is doing in the areas of equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Thank you. I'm Barbara Gallo. I never get this sector right, but community support, community.
It's a funny name. It's
Yeah.
other organization working in substance use addiction and recovery. I'll figure out the name exactly in the next 10 years, and I'll let you know.
I work for the Hampton Sheriff's Office at the Section 35 program, and I have facilitated community support groups for families who have loved ones struggling with addiction.
Sister Melinda Pellerin. I'm a sister of St. Joseph. I am the pastoral minister at St. Mary's in Longmeadow. I just recently completed classes in addiction counseling, so I work with mostly parents who have lost children to addiction, and I work with as a case manager at a sober house.
Candace Healy. I'm on the Close Steering Committee and represent civic and community groups at like the Long Meadow High School Parent Advisory Committee.
Andrew Healy, I'm a physician, work for Bay State Medical Center. I technically don't have a sector, but I will tag on to Dr. Kelly and say I'm part of the healthcare, and I work with lots of people who struggle with substance use disorder in the context of pregnancy.
I'm Vivian Welch. I'm a student at Long Meadow High School, and I'm representing Stan Club.
I'm Grace Carachetti. I'm a senior at Long Meadow High School. I also represent the youth sector and Stan Club.
And STAND stands for the Students Together Against Negative Decisions.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you for being here.
I'm Chris Rich. I'm part of the steering committee, and I also am a parent here in Long Meadow. By profession, I am a life coach, and I work with people so they learn how to handle their emotions so they don't need drugs and alcohol to get through life.
I'm Lisa Taylor Kelly. I am a pediatrician at Bay State. I primarily actually work with newborns, many of whom Andrew cared for before they were out of the uterus. So I'm on the other side of that with moms making that transition into parenthood with a history of substance use.
Hi there, I am Sandra McDonald, and I don't even know how to say it. I am part of the medical program, was for the last 36 years, and I love being here. I'm looking forward to the conversation here today. I'm willing to learn and still learning, and I appreciate that. Thank you for inviting me.
Bobby Barquette, former business owner here in town, so I represent businesses, business sector, and but I am in my new role, executive director for Living Local 413, so representing all businesses and entrepreneurs across all 4 counties of Western Massachusetts.
That's awesome. Congrats, Bobby.
Hope that helps.
Grab his arm at the door.
Mike Chakowski, Long Meadow PD. I'm lieutenant right now. Been with the PD for about 16 years. I also oversee our CIT and our DART team members at the PD.
CIT, Crisis Intervention Team.
Right.
DART, Drug Addiction Response Team.
Perfect. You got it.
I'm Reverend Charlotte LaForest. I'm the rector of St. Andrews in Long Meadow. I'm also licensed as a social worker, and we are doing some work in the Episcopal Diocese of Western Mass on building coalition around mental health, addiction, and spirituality. And so have some programming that we'll be starting up around that, community education, and some support networks within faith community settings.
And Paul, if I could say a quick hello, Marty O'Shea, superintendent, and really proud of the work of the Close Coalition, and proud of the way we have partnered with the Close Coalition, and really feeling like there's some renewed energy being brought to the coalition tonight. So this is a great event, great presentation. I've had an opportunity to preview some of the slides, so thanks, Paul, for pulling us together.
Yeah, my pleasure. And then, Charlotte, a bunch of people at the table tonight have done so much work for positive youth development and just making this a really great environment for young people to grow up in Long Meadow. And we're going to ask you to sort of share little anecdotes or stories from your work throughout the evening. But I really wanted to pass it over to Nilda, who has just taken off in her role here at Long Meadow Public Schools, focused on social emotional learning and diversity, equity, and inclusion, among about 55 other things. But I would love for you to share with us what you've been working on.
Great. So first, I just wanted to share a little bit about who I am. So the role is called the Director of Student and Family Support. As this position was created, I learned over time that there were many needs, especially on the student side. So often my day looks like many administrators collaborating with me, figuring out how to best support students in Long Meadow Public Schools. After 20 years as an educator and school administrator, I Was happy to see a role here in Long Meadow for social emotional learning. It has always been my passion in education. In this particular role, I lead all diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging efforts. I lead K-8 social emotional learning. Right now we're getting teachers trained in the ruler approach. It's a Yale researched back approach to help students develop social emotional learning skills. I collaboratively plan social emotional learning and culturally responsive professional learning opportunities, and I also oversee the health, wellness, and PE department. They're currently revamping some of their lessons to include more social emotional learning. And then I'm sharing just briefly my educational background, and then I have a little story that goes along with that. So I received my bachelor's from Springfield College, my master's from Columbia University, my 6th year from the University of Bridgeport, and I thought that's not enough degrees. I need to go back for my doctorates. So I'm currently at Bay Path University as a doctoral candidate and hopefully graduating in 2025. The reason why I quickly mentioned that, I went to a diversity, equity, and inclusion workshop with Dr. O'Shea. We're part of a network where superintendents meet with diversity, equity, and coordinators from across the state of Massachusetts. I sat in one of the affinity spaces, and the presenter said to me, women of color, oftentimes even after they've achieved, can develop imposter syndrome, that you feel you don't belong in spaces, no matter what. So she said, I just share my degrees as soon as I open a meeting. And then I thought about it and said, I had put my degrees on this slide, and normally people wouldn't need to do that, but I wonder if there's something inherent in me that wants to prove that, you know, I'm young, but I've done the work. So I just thought about, as we open the conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion work, my choice to put that on there, and how I had like a deep existential crisis based on this training and this, decision I made to include the degrees. There are people that, don't necessarily have to say where they received their degree from, and why did I feel the need to do that. I think about that, as we go forward. So now we're here, and when Paul had invited me, I said, is this an interactive presentation? And he said, you could make it as interactive as you would like. The first thing I just wanted all of us to think about, we all believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging work. The A stands for access. I've seen more and more letters be added to this acronym, but really it's all about inclusivity and making sure everyone has a seat at the metaphorical table. So think about a person. It could be an experience, a fact, or even a historical event. That's your why to the importance of equity work. And then my hope is that a few people would be willing to share. I told Paul that he should come ready with an anecdote.
I'm ready, yeah. But we should, so pair up?
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Even though we're on camera?
Oh, yeah, Brian can edit it.
Okay, perfect. Got it.
Yeah.
There are people watching right now, so we'll be very disappointed.
No, they're still going to hear my conversation with Charlotte. That's the only conversation. And then we'll share out after that.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're looking for an anecdote.
Yeah, something that is your why to your equity work. It
Got
could
it.
be something about you, or a historical event. If you don't have anything about you, it could be a fact.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, they're not going to just hear us, but we're going to be. What's your why?
Well, I think one of the things.
What's that? Belonging.
Nietas, the Hilton gang.
And
there I was going to school. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I love reading, I love writing.
One was diagnosed at birth, one a little bit later. And it has
what I'm going to do. So I had a teacher
learning
and then say to me, you're really talented, and you're college bound, and I think you could do it. And I said, I don't have any money for school.
educational environment.
You could
social environments.
You're a teacher at heart. You love helping people. You're a great writer and reader. So she encouraged me to apply for the Jessie Park Scholarship at Springfield College, and I wanted full tuition scholarship, and that was my pathway to access. But it really, like, it wasn't just a scholarship. It was that a teacher told me that I could become something, and I moved her.
Yeah. That's equity, right? Is like, how do you get them to get what they need so that they're on the same page as the kids who are treated differently?
It's not limited.
And one of the things that I think is amazing in schools here is at the end of the day, they have
do that, and it has taken me a good number of years to what I need.
Oh, cool.
So it's a period of time during the day, and kids can do a little extra work in certain areas. It allows my kids to work with their speech therapist or their teacher without missing other sort of major content from the classroom.
Oh my goodness.
So that's something
And
that I
it was
thought was
because
really
of me,
cool.
but I couldn't tell you it was because of me until after I sold it. I couldn't even sell it myself. My bookkeeper gave me a man to sell my business because I didn't think it was worth it. So,
And belonging.
Wow.
and so I get it. I people approach me about it, but when I was ready to actually sell it, I thought, I would sell it for something because looking at value and not putting the value on
They're twins.
the goodwill that I built.
So interesting.
And the
So,
customer
and
base
they're
I
nice to each
built
other?
up. So we
That's pretty awesome. Because sometimes brothers or siblings don't have to
youngest
be.
child,
So that's really great. It's a different animal, right? And I would love for you to speak. So I want you to share out at some point during the presentation. There's going to be an opportunity to share, like, St. Andrews hosted paraprofessional training for youth mental health first aid for all the paraprofessionals of Long Meadow Public Schools, which is basically every staff member that works with the most high need, at risk, physical neurodivergent students in the whole district. So, like,
I had to look at
an immense boost to just supporting kids and giving them access.
I know, that's the worst.
But you've just been such a huge part of that, just with the coalition through that, just by hosting it. So things
my
like that.
self-worth was wrapped up.
I mean, I have a very quick answer, which is
So
just,
when my son started struggling,
I grew up poor with like tons of behavioral
my
issues, and so like,
value, I was really
it's just,
struggling with my
I mean, if
value.
you find a couple of avenues for that,
And I just-
for yourself,
I
and get
almost
lucky, and you're
just
born into
taken
incredible
over
privilege just by virtue of being a white,
And it gave
cisgendered,
me
heterosexual male.
the ability to kind of
And if you can leverage that privilege as like opportunity to like, I'm gonna not be,
through that work, I could
you
tell
know,
you that business was
a
successful.
racist,
And through
you know,
that work, I don't
kid
usually
from my
say
town
I
who
could
bullies
take
people. Like, I'm not gonna do that, right? So I'm gonna,
time and
how
I
do I
just felt
do
like
something else?
maybe observing was
And I'm just
kind of-
constantly trying to find that way, and now I'm realizing, oh, it's so
I'm
important
glad
to
you shared your
like create
story.
space
It
for other
resonates
teenagers to realize like,
in so many ways you have no idea.
should help each other out and not be
I feel
classist
the need
and
to
not be,
plug
you know,
them.
ableist or certainly not racist or sexist. So, yeah, I think that was like my intersectionality that sort of inspired curiosity in this issue. And I certainly want to be an ally. I don't know if I am an ally, but for people who are marginalized or don't have a voice. Should teenagers don't have a voice? That's like the hardest thing. Because
Yeah, the judge said
a normal teenager doesn't have a voice. So if you have any other barriers, it's like just so hard.
And
Yeah. Oh, and substance use is another one. So significant barrier for a lot of teenagers. So here we are. Do you want to share yours?
I don't.
You don't have to. But like when we break out or when we come back.
The reason why I said it.
Oh, I'm gonna give a 1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. We're gonna come back in 1 minute. I hope they know that. You have 3 kids.
I do.
Okay, so you have two twins, and then you have an older or a younger? An older. All boys. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, boy. And then the oldest is a boy. Okay. How does he deal with being an older brother?
So I never saw her again.
Yeah, I think there's old school thoughts, and certainly, back when I first started on this journey, the tough love, the letting them fall was the thought. But now, I think we sometimes have up well. I too was denied a section for my son about
Very
5 months before he passed.
That makes sense. I mean, she
And
she's in
I
charge, right?
actually-
Yeah, okay. So the quicker that he learns that she's in charge, things will become more peaceful. Okay. Yeah, I have a situation like that too.
I work in a
Well, thanks for
section
sharing.
program.
I'm so glad you're here. Folks, let's bring it back together. And we would love for folks who feel comfortable sharing out
Oh my goodness.
some of their story, right? Some of their why?
Yes.
People feel comfortable sharing?
I'll start. I'll do it briefly, and then Paul, you said you were going to share
Sure,
yours
yeah.
too. So mine, I grew up in Springfield, Mass. I went to the High School of Commerce in the 90s, and during that time, we did have a lot of gang violence. So we had Latin Kings in our school. We had Los Nietas, Los Sólidos, and so it was such a tough environment, but I loved learning, I loved reading, and I kept thinking, what am I going to do with my future? Because I at that moment didn't see many prospects for myself. I did have a teacher pull me aside and say, I think you're smart, I think you're college bound, I think you could go to college. And I said, well, my parents don't have any money, I don't think I'm able to go. And she said, well, there's a scholarship at Springfield College. It's the Jesse Parks Scholarship for people who want to become educators, and I think you would be a great candidate. And I said, well, I'll just put my name in, I'll fill out the application, and we'll see. And yes, I did get that full tuition scholarship to Springfield College, and that's maybe why I put all those degrees there, because it was my pathway to access. And I just feel with the right level of belief that students can accomplish anything with, a champion by their side. Paul has a story too.
I do. I was talking with Reverend Charlotte LaForest about. I grew up, so I'm the seventh of 8 kids from Central Mass, and we did not have any money, so financially very insecure, and then tons of behavioral issues as a kid, just I think by virtue of being such a big family, and then that all led to more leaning towards substance use, like starting in middle school and just getting into a lot of behavioral issues and challenges, and also just have tons of mental health struggle in my family. And so all these things have led to me to constantly think about people who don't have opportunity or a voice or power, just helping share that. Because I was born white, cisgendered, heterosexual male, which is a ton of privilege. And so constantly trying to challenge myself and think about how to just share as many opportunities as possible around me. It's just really important to me. Because I made it out of a lot of challenging situations, and I've been very lucky, and I want to share that luck. Other folks want to share a little bit about why they care?
Well, it's the whole exercise of the program, right? Be inclusive and talk about what we're talking about here. So, a couple different things. One is listening to the world through my daughter's eyes, and watching her and observing her, and we have a beautiful relationship, and she's always felt comfortable coming to me, and quote unquote fighting against the boys, trying to have a voice at the middle school level and the high school level, where it's hyperly competitive in suburbia, right here in Long Meadow, where we raised our kids. Who's being heard? Is it the white male athlete who can yell above everybody else, and he's handsome, and he's this, and he's talented, and he's smart, and all those other things? So how does she find the voice in that? So when I became an employer here in town versus an employer outside of this town, and listening to the kids specifically the kids that were coming on board, or the single moms that were coming on board, and what are their needs and that type of thing, and me assuming, dead honest, assuming I knew exactly what they needed because my mom was a single mom. But back in 1979 through, let's say 1992, right, having kids at home before she was empty nest, is different from now being a single mom, and different perils and different things that are happening to them today. So being aware, and now with my role as an executive director of a nonprofit business organization that spans 4 counties, and I'm listening to the diversity of stories just all over the place, from a solopreneur, a single person business, micro entrepreneur businesses, to corporations, and listening to the struggle and the span between that. And it's almost like silly putties. You're like listening to this dynamic get pulled on you and everything, and the struggles that are really going on. Not what you know, not necessarily reading in the paper, but listening to stories, those anecdotal stories of what's really happening at work, at home. Access to food. You're talking about financial insecurity. How about food and food oases that I'm hearing? I'm like, what's a food oasis? My daughter teaching me what a food oasis is. So the awareness, tremendous awareness, but it's through listening. I mean, I did not know from personal experience. I did not. I was listening to my daughter, which started this cascade of things, and me looking at my business and my employees and then other businesses differently after that. Thanks, Bobby.
I shared with Paul that one of my whys, 2 of my whys actually came through parenting my children. I have 3 kids in the Longmeadow Elementary schools, 2 of whom are hearing impaired. One was diagnosed soon after she was born, the other not long after that. And just the way that that opened up my world to understanding issues of access and inclusion, how much harder they have to work to understand what's going on in an educational or a social environment, what it looks like when their hearing needs are tolerated versus when they are sort of actively worked to be included, and that changes are made on their behalf to really allow that full equity and inclusion into any sort of environment, has really brought some of these issues into distillation in a clearer way for me. And especially as they're, only just starting to get to an age where they can even do any of that advocacy for themselves, but really, learning to be a voice and an advocate for them.
My why is from my experiences in the healthcare system and different groups that I've worked on. And a big focus of my career is quality and safety and what we call morbidity and mortality, and looking at differences by race and ethnicity, and just the way my own understanding of that has changed over decades, in that we see worse outcomes in Black and brown patients who have access to similar care, but maybe are treated differently because of race, ethnicity, the way someone talks, the way someone looks, is dressed, or things like that. And Massachusetts is a great state as far as health insurance goes, but someone can have health insurance, but if they don't feel comfortable coming to see their doctor, they don't feel like they're being heard, then they don't come. And then by the time they do show up, things have advanced more. So when you look at statistics locally, nationally, it's just appalling what you see with death rates for Black women in pregnancy being like 3 times greater than white women. And it's, Massachusetts is doing a lot to work on that, but there is so much work that needs to be done. And starting with people as young as you possibly can, I think is really, really important.
It's like prevention versus treatment, right? Prevention takes a long time and it's really expensive, but so much less expensive and effective than treating late in the game, right?
So I think I want to acknowledge the level of vulnerability for the people who shared. DEIB work is always like wrought with humility, vulnerability, stories, all of the sharing. So I'm just moved by everyone's tale. So I'm just happy that we started this way. So now I just want to share a bit of what Longmeadow Public Schools did to figure out where we were in terms of our equity work. So we consulted with the Center for Leadership and Educational Equity, and part of their work, they're an independent organization that came into our school system, did observations, did interviews with students and educators, and then they published their findings in the audit and issued some recommendations. The equity audit is available to the public and is posted on Longmeadow Public Schools website. First, when I saw this, that we had conducted an independent audit, I thought it was very brave of an organization to do that. Rarely do you get an academic institution saying, we would love someone to come in and really take an outsider's view and see if are our practices really equitable? Are we really promoting a sense of belonging in our schools? We can say this is the work that we're doing, but would an independent party confirm that? The question that they sought to answer was, to what extent do students or staff, students, and their families from non-dominant groups, and there's some parentheses there with additional descriptors, feel they are valued and that their academic and social needs are served equitably. And this came out of, the question came out of a survey that really demonstrated that the perceptions were different between dominant versus non-dominant groups. And the percentage was 69% versus 57%, and the details are there. So then CLE came up with their equity audit recommendations, and this is part of the work that we've started doing in this organization over the course of several years. Some of the work had already begun prior to the audit, but there were two big buckets of the recommendation. The first was to improve programmatic and systemic equity. So we would set goals, monitor progress, and reorganize systems. Part of that work looks like offering data analysis, figuring out which students need targeted support, issuing protocols across all schools for multi-tiered systems of support. So we would find out sooner who needed support and what are the things that we could do as a school system to help accelerate their progress. The other bucket that they identified is to help educators reach each and every student. So their capacity to teach, their capacity to collaborate, and their capacity to lead. Most of this was professional development that teachers wanted and needed in the areas of culturally responsive teaching and social emotional learning. One of the bullets talks about having asset-based conversations about students, not always thinking this is what my students aren't doing, but shifting your language to say, what can they do? What strengths are they bringing to the table, and how can we leverage those strengths to help accelerate progress? So these recommendations, I think, were our next level of work, and you'll see that these recommendations were adopted right into our school development plan, and there were goals that were related directly to their work. Here are some of the tangible outcomes that we've already started doing. One of them is we started looking at curriculum materials just to ensure that all voices and experiences are shown in all classes for underrepresented groups so that students see themselves in the curriculum. Ongoing professional development on culturally responsive and inclusive practices. We launched this August with a panel of educators from different organizations. Some were BAPAC professors, one was a leadership coach, one was the coordinator for LPVC, and they shared what experiences they felt could really help teachers address the needs of all students. We're still committed to hiring a diverse faculty and staff. We know that our students need to see different cultures as their teachers, and need to see themselves in their teachers as well. We're committed to social emotional learning. That's the work I'm going to share a bit about tonight. And increasing opportunities for critical conversations, holding all members accountable for potential bias. We have a bias incident protocol that administrators use if and when incidents of hatred or bullying occur in our schools. And then we're interested in continuing supporting families with some of the resources related to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. So the area that I wanted to focus on was social emotional learning. That's where we've made a lot of gains. So we've adopted the CASEL framework, and in the framework we have goals related to self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And this is all to help the culture of belonging in our schools. And we're really getting educators to see that a student's emotions matter. I think there was someone that said earlier, like helping people recognize and identify their emotions in the moment so that they could regulate and grapple with them prior to making unhealthy choices. That's what our hope is to do. We're going to roll out a program K-8 for social emotional learning and see the impact of that on students. We know that emotions impact attention, memory, and learning. Anyone who's ever taken an exam when they're nervous knows that their performance is going to be hindered because of their stress and their anxiety levels, and there's research out there to prove that your performance is impacted by your emotions. We are also going to talk about how students, if they're unable to regulate their emotions in the moment, they're going to have challenges making good decisions. Relationship quality. Anyone who's been in a long-term relationship knows that if you can't regulate your emotions in a marriage, you probably aren't going to be successful in that marriage. It impacts your physical and mental health. We have doctors in the audience, so we know that stress can impact your eating habits, your longevity, in so many ways. And when we interviewed students and surveyed them, many students said that the stress and anxiety that they feel at school oftentimes manifests itself into a health-related symptom, either a headache, a stomach ache, asking to go home, or not coming to school at all because the stress and anxiety is keeping them at home. So those are some of the things that we're looking into. And then, of course, it impacts your performance and creativity. This is a quick video. I don't know if you have time to show it.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a quick video of the program that we're hoping to implement. Teachers are getting trained this year, and we're hoping to launch at the middle school level next year.
Kay Gomez wants to look pulled together each morning when she's getting ready for school. It's a world away from her stressful home life. But it's brought some surprising stresses of its own.
I was used to being around people that looked like me, lived in the same neighborhood, had similar interests. I was sad for a long time. It was so hard.
Did you think, like, this is not for me as you walk through the hallways?
Yes.
Every day?
Every day.
Fellow students Miles Patrikoff and Olivia Kupiak brought a different kind of stress to school.
My parents want me to go to the most prestigious college possible, want me to get the best grades possible, and want me to work as hard as I can. They expect me to be stressed. And then I come to school, and they're asking me to reflect on my day.
Where do you place yourself on our mood meter?
Their feelings weren't a secret at the lab school. It's one of New York City's most competitive. Checking in on emotions is part of their daily routine.
I'm at like a 3, -1.
The strategy, called Social Emotional Learning, or SEL, teaches kids to understand and manage emotions, to feel and relationships, and to problem solve.
So this is the thing we saw in the English class. This is the mood meter. This is the mood meter.
Lab school principal Brooke Jackson believes the approach helps students reach their full academic potential.
If you can identify
give language to how you're feeling, then you're much more likely to be able to manipulate your own emotional state. So, do you think it helps you better?
I feel more engaged when I have a teacher who, she knows my emotions, and I think that really correlates to how you do in that class or how you feel about that class.
Social emotional learning is gaining traction across the country. With numerous programs implemented in thousands of schools, measuring success is tricky, and SEL has mixed reviews. Yet there is mounting evidence that the right program, properly integrated, yields academic rewards. Congress has even allowed funding for SEL in the new education law.
How's everybody feeling?
Mark Brackett is director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. He developed Ruler, one of several dozen SEL programs.
After 1 year of implementing the work, academic performance goes up by about 10%, that students' behavior shifts in positive ways, that the interactions just become more positive.
There's all sorts of research that show that kids need an outlet in order to express their pain. And so we shouldn't ignore that pain. I just wanted to...
That's Lady Gaga. The pop star is also an activist, shining a spotlight on research by Brackett and the Yale Center. The findings demonstrate why students need to manage their emotion.
Cared about emotions, but
Kami was among the 22,000 students from across the country. Tired, bored, and stressed were the top 3 emotions students said they felt in school. They said they were bored 78% of the time and stressed 80% of the time.
If you're feeling intense amount of stress, right, the neural pathways are being, in many ways, utilized to manage the stress. You're thinking about the way out. You're thinking about, how am I going to survive? Who's going to be my friend? How am I going to get home safely? How am I going to get to college? And when your brain is obsessed with that kind of thinking, it's not available for learning.
For the students at lab, managing their emotions has made way for learning.
of course I knew what emotions were. I knew if I was upset, but to reflect on it is taking it to a completely different level.
I'm not forcing myself to be happy 100% of the time. It's recognizing when I am angry or upset and learning how to like channel that and figuring out what I need to do to be able to succeed.
It's a strategy that's helped Kami through a rough transition.
And now as you walk these halls as a senior, does it feel like this is home? It does feel like. You feel like you fit? Yeah.
For WebMD, I'm Soledad O'Brien.
So does anyone want to share any takeaways that they saw in that video?
I'm so excited so as a life coach, every day I am teaching adults who never learned what to do with their emotions, what to do with them. We learned so many great things in school that are, like to write a paper and about science and genetics. And a lot of those things I don't ever use. But every single day I deal with emotions as a person, and so does everyone else in this room. And our emotions are the fuel for our actions. So when we are feeling a certain emotion, I'm gonna, if I'm feeling anger or lonely, I'm gonna act a certain way. And a lot of times that includes choices that are not gonna help me show up as my best self. And so helping people to understand this is, I think, one of the most important things that we can do that affects every area of your life. So I'm so excited about this.
Anyone else with takeaways?
Yeah, I'm very excited about that as well. I did a presentation with a coworker at a different school, not at this school. But during the presentation, there was a young woman who was just obviously on the verge of tears for the entire time. And I asked the teacher's permission after class if I just said, can I check in with you? And we really talked about seeing people and about identifying and about taking the time to do more than say, oh, she'll be okay. And what she ended up sharing that day, based on stress and pressure, from a family, from an immigrant family who counted on this child getting good grades. They were paying for the school. So it was a private school. They were paying for the school, and you have to succeed, and you're going to lead the pathway in order for your younger siblings to have any opportunity. And the amount of pressure this girl was feeling, and when she kind of got done talking, she looked at me and she said, "See, I even stumped you." And I said, "Oh, sweetheart, I'm not here to fix your problems. That's not why I just wanted to listen to you, because you could fix your problems. You're going to get through this. That's one thing I'm sure. I just wanted you to know that I saw you, and just the importance of that kind of connection in that moment, I think. Yeah.
And do the students want to share anything that you've noticed in classrooms, the stress level, anything about this potentially coming to Longmeadow Public Schools?
I think it would definitely be helpful to have something like what the video was talking about in our schools. I know there's definitely a higher standard of academic excellence at this school in particular. So I think just having a way for students to check in and learn how to regulate their emotions, when dealing with all the kind of pressure of this school, and I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think at the younger grades it's also helpful. My mom's a substitute teacher, and I've heard from her that especially after COVID, kids' behaviors and is getting worse, and they have trouble regulating emotions. So I think that's definitely helpful.
Great. And I'm just so happy that we're in an audience of people that understand the value of understanding your emotions, regulating your emotions. And this is not only helpful for students, we see this as work that adults need to do as well. Everyone remembers that teacher that was dysregulated that may have made you hate a particular content area. And then everyone oftentimes remembers a teacher that inspired you in a content area and that really became the key to your learning experience. Rita Pearson has a TED Talk where she talks about every child needs a champion, and she has this phrase that I've always remembered. She said, "Students don't learn from people they don't like." And learning sometimes is so inextricably tied to how your teacher treats you, how you feel about the learning experience, your own ability to believe in your own capacity for learning. All of those are rooted in emotion and not just content. Before, the old school of learning was leave your emotions at the door. I'm here to teach you math and only math. That's not how teachers should approach learning today. So part of the training that teachers are going to be going through is to shift from being an emotion judge to being an emotion scientist. An emotion judge says, you were up late, you didn't study, you're unprepared, you're not focused, you might be lazy. They're judging the emotion that they see within the students. They make assumptions, they speak before listening, they rush, they're problem focused, they offer students temporary or momentary fixes. I remember I was a former principal and I observed my administrative assistant, a student showed up late, and her first comment was, "You're late again? This is the third time this week. You're going to get another tardy. This is unacceptable." And I kept thinking to myself, this student is only 13. I doubt that they controlled all of the factors that brought him late that morning. And I pulled her aside and I said, how about we just change our approach and just say, I'm happy to see you. I would love to see you here earlier. I missed you. I love to see your smiley face. Just shift how you talk to kids about who they are, because I guarantee you she's not in control of what time she arrives. The emotion scientist approach is really looking at students as if there's something that you're trying to figure out. You ask them questions. Your story about sharing with a child, I see you, the listening you do every day. Half the time, students just need an adult to listen to what they're feeling and really validate their emotions. This emotion scientist is patient, they're solution-oriented, and they offer strategies and support when students are struggling. This is the ideal and optimal, learning environment. So part of the work and part of the reason we brought SEL to Longmeadow Public Schools is we know that the sense of belonging that students have to their school increases their retention rates and their academic performance. The way that we're defining belonging is that we affirm all student identity, we establish structures that create predictability and consistency. Strong sense of belonging is correlated to achievement, performance, and well-being in schools. So one of our survey questions that we ask students is, do you feel like you belong? Do you feel connected to an adult? And part of some of the survey data that we'll show you is that not every student feels like they belong in Longmeadow Public Schools. How we define belonging is subjective. There are thousands. I read through many different research positions where psychologists, child behavioral analysts, clinicians define what belonging is. I did like this definition. It's that a sense of belonging means you matter, you feel valued, and you feel like you belong in that space. You feel like every single one of your physiological needs are met. You feel safe in the environment. You feel like you have friends, support. You feel respected, recognized, and you have the autonomy to make creative choices. You can take risks in the classroom. So this definition, I felt like it was all encompassing, and that's the kind of school environment that we hope to have. So the question we posed to students, over 682 answered. Do you feel as though you have a connection with at least one adult in your school community? This could be a teacher, a counselor, a coach, a nurse, an administrative assistant, or anyone, any adult in the building. And when we saw these survey results, you hope that it would be 100 for all students. That every student, when they come to school, they feel connected to at least one adult. So we broke down the survey results by demographic, and you can see the results there. I don't think 84% is even good enough for students. And then we go down to 73%, 70%, 72, and 77. So the perception of you having at least one adult decreases for different racial demographics in our schools. Then they did a cross-reference to the connection to an adult and other behaviors. So then we see students who of the students who reported they were not connected to at least one adult, we saw riskier behaviors. So an increase in the rates of depression, stress and anxiety, and self-harm, suicidality, and eating disorders.
And the kids who were connected, easier time managing stress. Stress is less of a problem. They report mostly A's and B's at a higher rate. So better outcomes for kids who are connected.
And this is another one. Do you want to do this one?
Yeah, just the middle school. We have tons of data on the middle school too. We focus a lot of our attention on the outcomes from the high school, but we have some great information from the middle schools as well. The middle schoolers who report not feeling connected to at least one adult in the school have 100%, more than 100% higher rate for 30-day alcohol use rate, reported 30-day alcohol use. The students who feel, who do not feel connected to an adult, their 30-day vaping rate is about 7% higher. So substance use rates traditionally are going to be higher for students who just feel less connected in school. School is such a protective, such an important domain, and has so many protective factors in it, and it just makes such a huge difference to have that one extra caring adult that's not a parent that's in your school, checking in on you or just connecting with you.
The opposite of addiction is connection. It's not sobriety.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, the
who's the
opposite
doctor
of
said that?
addiction is connection. I can't think of the doctor's name, but that's my
Did everyone hear that?
favorite mantra.
The opposite of addiction. Or say it again?
The opposite of addiction is connection. It's not sobriety. Sobriety, drugs and alcohol a symptom of addiction. Addiction is a brain disorder that causes folks to not feel like they belong or connect with
Something's missing. And then, opioids or alcohol or cannabis or whatever it is fills a hole.
Absolutely.
And when I'm working with teenagers, I present to them on different substances and the impact of substances. I always say, you guys deserve to feel good. Everyone deserves to feel good. But some people have a really hard time developing those good feelings for themselves. And so it's much easier to have an external chemical that's super reliable, super efficient, making you feel better with serotonin and dopamine and endorphins. So it's just not fair. Some kids can have a drink of alcohol and it's not problematic long term, and then some kids really can't. It's just based on hereditary predisposition and other risk factors. But everyone deserves to feel good, I think.
So what are ways that you strive to include, increase belonging and inclusion in your own domain? So whatever organization that you're from, what are some of the things that you're thinking about in your organization to increase belonging and inclusion?
Do you want us to pair up or do you want us to share?
Oh, you could just share up, yeah. So to be for the...
From a police standpoint, we take great pride in the past 7-8 years. There was a grant by the Department of Mental Health, and essentially we were awarded that grant, and we were able to send every officer within the span of a couple of years to a 40-hour training. It was mental health, substance abuse, and every officer came back, myself included, understanding more that the old adage of a police officer. We all know when you call the cops, it's probably going to be because you're going through something that you need help for. It's a high emotional state. And the old adage was, you tell someone 3 times, and then if they don't listen, you're either going to lock them up or something's going to happen. Well, this training really shows you understand what the person's going through, whether it's emotional state, whether it's, again, substance abuse, and giving them however many times it is needed. But to add to the, inclusion and belonging to the community, we also started part of the CIT and DART teams that I run here at the LPD. If we respond to a call where someone's going through an emotional state or a substance abuse issue, we'll follow up with a clinician days later. And sometimes the people slam the door in our face, they don't want that, but the vast majority of the time, the people are truly shocked that the police care, and to that degree. And we always have, but we're trying to be more open about it and giving them resources that, again, decades ago, police would show up and leave and not even give them pamphlets at the door, but now we're responding 2, 3, 4 days after the fact and making sure they're okay when they return from the hospital, and truly caring. And we have built some good relationships in that have helped. So that would be my example from a police standpoint.
Yeah, that's wonderful. The training, I think, sounds like influential, like impactful, and the fact that you follow up, I think that would support anyone in feeling like we see you, we care about you, we're not going to let you down, we're still going to be in your life, and we're here to help, not just when you're in crisis.
Exactly.
So I think that's wonderful. Anyone else that when they're do you want to share a little more about what STAND does at the school to increase belonging?
Oh, sure. Oh my God, do you want me to start? Oh, okay. So STAND, we meet every other week, and so we do a bunch of different projects at the school and in the community. I think one of the bigger ones that we do to increase belonging is, we do a Zen Den around midterms, so it's a place that students can go and just relax from, like the high stress atmosphere of taking a test and stuff like that. So there's like just relaxing and like decompressing and being around other students.
Therapy dog.
And a therapy dog. That helps, definitely.
I feel like every organization needs their own Zen Den.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, with a therapy dog and a relaxation corner. Oh, sounds wonderful. And do students use it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else before?
Yes,
Dana?
I do several things. In fact, the reason why I began working for the medical program was one young man was having difficulties just making it daily. And this was some 40 years ago. And he was just having trouble, and they said, Sandy, you've sat home long enough. My kids were young, and I decided that I would stop work, and I did. And they said, you sat, so can you give this young man a couple of hours a day? I said, yes, I can. Well, I knew the family, as it turns out. And this young man, after all this time, still contacts me. That's what the Unity Club does at the high school. I let the students come in. I'll tell them that you can talk about whatever. I purposely do not listen. And then they'll say, are you listening, Miss Mack? I said, oh, I didn't think you wanted me to listen. But I gave you that opportunity to come, and they do. And they said, no, it's time. We want to talk to the principal. I've had the principal in several times, many times throughout the year. And he too sat there and let them just talk and talk and talk. And it was the best thing going. As I walk around the building, if I see a student that looks like they're alone, I'm lucky enough to do that because I don't have a classroom. So I've said, hello, how you doing? You having a good day today? I like what you're wearing, or you know, where you're on your way to. And before I know it, a young man talked to me on my way back here. And he said, I never talked to you. I see you, but I never talked to you. And I just asked him, is he okay? And he said, yes, I've been here since 7 o'clock this morning. I says, well, I'm going to do one of my grandmother's things that you eat. Did you have something to eat? And he says, you care about me eating? Yes, I do. I always have something in my room. So, and it's amazing how I've sat in classrooms because a student was not feeling comfortable, and I've gone and sat in the classroom. Just didn't say anything. And they say, oh, what to do? What do we do? We did nothing. I came to see if I've learned anything, if I can learn anything from you all. I didn't do anything. But it's just a matter of, as soon as they know that you're interested in them, any way, shape, or form, they'll talk to you. And you'd be surprised at the number of kids that just come up and talk to you. And that's what I want to do, and that's what I want to continue to do. So I'm so glad you invited me, because my head is spinning. I won't say my hair is spinning, but my head is spinning, and I really appreciate that. It's good. It's very, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to say, I'm not within the school system, but within the community. One of the ways that I feel I strive to increase belonging is by just being vulnerable enough to say my family's been affected by substance use disorder, that I lost my youngest son, that I haven't done things perfectly. I made a lot of mistakes before he passed, and to just allow someone else to be able to talk about it without feeling like I may look at them differently.
And Barbara joins the 12th graders in the spring for the recovery panels. I think it's almost every 12th grader participates in these panels with, they include, 4, 5, 6 folks who are in active recovery from substance addiction and have struggled with, almost all of them have been incarcerated, I think.
They're coming here from,
they're transitioning.
They're incarcerated while they come here. They're in the minimum security setting.
Okay. But you help organize it. It's just like such an amazing sort of, healing, powerful conversation with students.
For all.
Yeah.
For all, really.
I think it's that vulnerability. All the 12th graders are always just so taken aback, like, whoa, they're being really honest with us.
But
it's nice to have adults visit and be really honest.
One of those panels, one of them that I remember so clearly, is we brought in a young woman who was in for vehicular homicide, vehicular manslaughter, right? She was drunk driving and she was completing a sentence for having caused the death of someone driving drunk. And when she got done talking, when they were finished, a young girl came down out of the audience and she said, "My brother was killed by a drunk driver." And she said, "I absolutely hated him and could never find a place in my heart to even think about forgiveness until I heard you speak." That's powerful, you know. Yeah, never.
Yeah. All of the stories that people have shared have truly humbled me. I think everyone shared a piece of themselves, a piece of their life, and it really stemmed from us feeling like we belonged in this space, even though there's people watching us elsewhere. I just feel so connected to the people in this room. So just I thank you all for just being honest, transparent, vulnerable, and humble. And that was it for my side of the presentation.
I wanted to talk about data. Yay!
Now Paul takes it over.
I wonder if you could refresh the presentation, because there may be some edits that haven't been updated. Just want to double check. So if you scroll, okay, great. Yeah, go up, and then if I point at you, can you change slides?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Can you go up one more slide? Thanks, Nelda. Oh, down. Sorry, the other way. Right there. Okay. Shelley Warren, the school substance use response coordinator. She's an amazing champion of this work for the school district. She's been here for, gosh, it feels like 20 plus years working in the district. She developed a really wonderful presentation on LGBTQ plus student data and BIPOC student data on health protective and risk factors. And so I wanted to share some of that data with you all tonight. Just a background on the survey. A lot of you already know the details of the survey. A vast majority of students participate, up to 90%, complete the survey every spring. And the demographic identifiers evolve based on student engagement every year, which I think is really interesting. This is gender, cis man, cis woman, and trans non-binary. We just wanted to look at 30-day alcohol, binge drinking, cannabis, and vaping use. Cis women, the highest 30-day alcohol use rate by far, which is interesting, right? But binge drinking, it's a much closer gap between cis man, cis woman, and trans non-binary. 30-day cannabis use, trans non-binary use is way higher than cis man and women. And then vaping is the highest for cis man. Just all very interesting stuff to think about when we think about. That's not abnormal for cis women to have a higher drinking rate than cis males. Our survey changes. So, years ago we used to ask, are you Hispanic or Latino? And then we would ask about self-identified race. And now we ask race or ethnicity, all in one question. Now we're asking about Middle Eastern, North African. We weren't doing that before. We really try to follow the census and other just sort of gold standard survey questions to just be as inclusive as possible. It really makes a difference when people see a box that reflects their identity. Yeah, so if you can go back again. So instead of just saying other, trying to figure out what are people most likely to identify with, which is what we're trying to ask. And then evolution of sex and gender identifiers. We went from cisgender female and male. Now we say cisgender man, cisgender woman, non-binary, transgender man, transgender woman, and then other is still available so that people can at least have a voice on how they identify if it's not. And then we also ask about sex, female, male, or intersex, which we didn't used to do, even 2 years ago. Orientation, sexual orientation identifiers, heterosexual, gay, lesbian, bisexual, not sure. So bisexual is new, was new in 2015. Now we include asexual, identifying pansexual, not sure, and other is an option as well. How we use our data. I think Dr. O'Shea and the school district's leadership are awesome about being transparent with our data. There's not very many things that it seems like people want to hide as far as our data, which I think is incredible. It really helps us identify vulnerable groups, helps us target resources and supports and interventions. and different curricular needs. That's what data isn't truth, it's just a signal, right? So it sort of tells us what to pay attention to. It doesn't tell us what is or isn't necessarily. Not to get too, BIPOC students connection. So we were talking about the importance of connection to a staff member at the school that isn't a parent. So this is a gap. Students who identify as white are feeling more connected to an adult in the school district. And that's since we're looking back to 2017. The white students are in the green line. The BIPOC students, Black, Indigenous people of color, that's the purple line. So that's 72% compared to 85%. It's a pretty big gap in 2023, and it looks like it's actually widening more since 2022, which is an issue.
That's really powerful slide.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason really why, right? A student, if you have teachers, and we have amazing, loving, caring teachers in the school district, and if equity isn't giving everyone the same thing, right? It's giving each person what they need independently or individually. So giving them meeting their unique needs. That's what equity is. So that's why we're trying to increase equity.
And Sandy talked a bit earlier about the focus groups and talking to kids. Sometimes she and I, when we meet with kids, they'll share with us why they don't feel as connected in school. What are some of the things that make them feel like other in school? Sandy works with many of the students who attend Longmeadow Public Schools but also live in Springfield. And some of the times we'll sit down and we'll talk to students and they'll say, well, I don't feel like this is my school. I feel sometimes like people make assumptions about where I live. I also feel like I go to school with acquaintances. I don't go to school with my real friends. My real friends are in Springfield. So there is a disconnect that we're hearing and feeling, and Sandy's done a great job of trying to help connect students to adults in the building, help them be seen, but there's still so much room to grow, and we're thinking this social emotional training for educators could help decrease this gap.
Thanks, Nilda. And then we asked students, do you feel treated with respect by teachers, which is the top two, purple and green. So we have BIPOC students and students identifying as white. And then the other question we asked was, do you feel like you fit in with other students? And so the darker lines are feeling like you're treated with respect by teachers. So there's a huge gap in 2015. They met up in 2018. And they're sort of starting to separate again. There's quite a precipitous drop from 2018 to 2020. And that's when we had our best data on this from the school survey. And then other students you feel like you fit in with. White kids, 92%. I mean, it was just sort of flying high, right? 91, 92, 93%. And then students who identify as BIPOC have traditionally always been lower, and that pink line, 92% compared to 80%. That's a pretty big difference. And that's, there's so many reasons why they might not feel like they fit in.
But,
yeah.
And this drop, this gap, that delta between, I don't know if I'm reading this.
Treated with respect by a teacher is 85 for white kids, and treated with respect by a teacher is 76 for BIPOC kids.
Right. It's such a dramatic drop.
Mm-hmm.
And
from 87 down to 76.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know if
what
it's
happened.
Statistically significant go from 87 to 85, but it certainly is from the peak where they met, and then this drop. What is that?
Bobby, look at the trend. It was in 2015. It was on the way up, right?
Yeah.
For BIPOC kids, and then boom, it just plummeted back to.
Was that administered in the spring?
Every spring, yeah, March.
Yeah.
Late March,
So
early.
was that,
COVID impact.
That's COVID. Was that when everybody was at home? And-
Yeah.
This was actually just before.
Looks like just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just
like
before the
literally
pandemic?
the week that the pandemic was starting to affect schools, and everyone was saying, we'll never close the schools, and it was like 2 days after the survey, the schools closed. So it's a great question though.
I was hoping that it would be that, because then
Yeah.
we're like, oh, maybe it was access to technology, or no. So that was a significant drop, and you just don't know. Yeah, that. Thank you for pointing out what a large gap that was, and I wonder like how that happened or where it started.
Physical and verbal harassment, reported harassment. White kids, 13%, this is 2023. Asian American, Pacific Islanders at 10%, so that's pretty significantly lower, but Hispanic and Black, African American, Latino, all 14%, so higher harassment. I mean, just 1 out of 10 kids feeling physically or verbal harassed just seems like a lot anyway. But the pretty close rates for white and BIPOC. This was from our 2019 data. This gave us some really good data across the board for bullied at school, bullied electronically or verbally harassed. But some things really jumped out, which were the Asian American students identifying, half of the students identifying as being verbally harassed on school property in the last 12 months, which is a major red flag. Black or African American bullied on school property was 20%. 1 out of 3 Black or African American kids verbally harassed. And then Hispanic or Latino, 1 out of 3 verbally harassed on school property in the last 12 months. Because of, they report verbally harassed because of their race or ethnicity. So those rates are so dramatically high. Look at the white rates are just around 10% across the board here.
And one of the things that I did once I joined this organization, I wanted to see if these were actually reported to school administrators, and I found out the numbers were completely different. So it means that on an anonymous survey, they are reporting that they were bullied and harassed, but oftentimes these reports are not making their way to administrators. So we have to come up with a better plan for making it easier for students to report, and why are they not reporting to their school administrator.
What do you mean? It was different, higher or lower?
Lower, way lower.
So all of these statistics that I'm looking at, that's a mirror of society too. So I'm not confused or shocked.
Not surprised.
I'm not surprised at any of this. So it's just, it mirrors what our society is like today.
Yeah. All right, mental health by identity. LGBTQIA plus anxiety is the highest, depression is the highest, eating disorders were highest, and suicidality. What a high risk population to focus on, right? So, and this is just Longmeadow, and this is absolutely on the outside of Longmeadow as well, nationally. This is the same population that is the most at risk. And you look at white rates for these are all in the green.
And is there an increase in the eating disorder component, or have you always measured eating disorders?
We've measured eating disorders for at least 7 years. Yeah, and anything you guys want like more data on, I could give you trend data, which I think is really cool to look at too. The last 7 to 10 years, I can give you the trend data on any of these issues. And we already had Sandy say hello and introduce herself, and so we can jump ahead, and I was going to have Sandy talk about the Unity Club and the and Metco, but she already did a little bit, which I think is great.
I did. I love the students. I love the students at every level. What I love about Unity Club is that they are able to, and I'm going to start again right after vacation. There's a couple of things that happened that I was not aware of, and others. Everything came late this year. It seemed all the different things that we had going on. So what it is with Metco, where it's loved. The students that come from Springfield, and they're all Springfield students, the parents want this education for them. They felt as though they were not getting that in Springfield. I was raised in Springfield, along with this young lady right there. We were raised in Springfield, and we had all that. I didn't feel as though it was missed. So I don't know what has happened and what the turnaround was, but I know it's so important that the parents that we have, they'll work with you. If anything's wrong, they'll work with you. They're very happy. I've had students that say, I don't want to be here. And I showed him a story that one young lady said, I can't do this. And I said, what can't you do? She said, I can't be here. And when she said that, I says, well, because she wasn't even eating her lunch at the time. I said, during lunchtime, come into my room, get your lunch, and come in there. She did that for 2-3 weeks. And then one day, she says, I'm going to go and have lunch in the cafeteria. And I said, it's a good thing. So she did that. And as she did that, I peeked out, and she was okay. Little by little, she came and told me, I don't need you. And I said, oh, like that. She knew I was joking. I said, oh. She said, thank you. And she learned, because I told her, give it a chance, give it an opportunity. Then come back and tell me, well, this person said this, that person, I can't take it. But she did, and by me letting her just come into my room and breathe, it worked. And she said, I don't need you anymore. And I love that. So that, and it's hard when you have a whole classroom, and I realize, but we have to make sure that it is known. Make sure that they spot things like this, teachers spot things like this. And it's not really hard. Just like the young man, I know he was exhausted, and all I cared about, did you eat? You know, I got a smile out of him. But we have to do it that way. And little by little, it'll work. She graduated last year. She's happy as pig in mud because she was allowed to feel and what she felt. She wasn't pretending. She knew she felt it, and you couldn't wash it away. So we've got to be able to notice this and see what the best way it is to deal with. Someone else could have been totally different. But with her, just coming and eating and relaxing during lunchtime, and then she said it herself, I'm going out. I'm going to eat. I'm going to have lunch. And so that's what I've been trying to do. And in Unity, what I allow students to do is to come in there. They can talk to any teacher they want to, and the teachers will come willingly and tell them what they liked about their classroom or maybe what they didn't. And I'll tell you the truth, the teachers loved it. The teachers loved it because it was done with due respect. It wasn't yelling and screaming, so that's what we're doing in Unity. And I allow them, I even walk out of the room sometime if I feel they want to talk, amongst themselves. I've walked out of the room, been right there, and they'll call me and tell me I may come back into my room. But that's what they needed. That's what they needed. I didn't have a problem doing that. They know I always have candy, so that alone will keep them in there. But Unity is growing more and more every year. It's growing more and more every year. And you may ask me any questions about it, but it's just allowing them to breathe, allowing them to be themselves, and allowing them no judgment, and they've been so respectful. I can't complain. I said, this old lady, this grandmother, you got to be kind to her. And they said, they know how to talk. They know how to speak. You hear them yelling and screaming, but they know how to speak. All of them, the medical program, the Unity Club, and this school system, which someone said to me not too long ago in Springfield, oh, are you still there? Yes, I am, and I'm not going anywhere. Before you say, oh, is she still there, you need to come. And you need to hear, and you need to see what's going on here and the school system. It is wonderful. And everybody has a spot. Everybody finds their spot here. And it's okay if you do that. And so I've got a couple of people that are coming in a few weeks after we come back from vacation, and they're just going to sit in my room too, and eat candy and listen to what's going on. This one right here is wonderful. And they all are. She is wonderful, wonderful young lady. And she means business. And I appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
So, any questions about Metco? Any questions at all I can answer?
I was just thinking about something that Robert shared with me earlier about why there's such a need for inclusive spaces in Longmeadow Public Schools. Most of the students have been, you want to share that because you live in Longmeadow, most of the students have known each other, they're neighborhood friends, they've gone to similar schools, they play sports, their parents are friends. So then when we think about the METCO program, having students come in from an outside community, it must be very challenging to try to integrate into this community when some of these students have known each other for a very, very long time.
Well, I was responding specifically to your comment about how the students, when they were polled, many of them shared that their acquaintances were here, but not their true friends. And then my response, I was trying to think about that for a second. I'm thinking, okay, well, they're watching and interacting or observing people that have grown up together down the street. You interact before school, after school, weekends.
Summer.
School isn't the central location of your life. It's a big domain. I love that word that you used earlier. It's a big domain, but you're interacting outside of school, your sports and achievement and sledding and whatever you're doing, your life, your parents are interacting together, and you maybe even have extended family here. You may be multi-generational right here in this town, so your sense of belonging, you're a fabric of this town. And being observed, then you say, am I a part of that? How can I become a part of it? How can I feel more connectivity besides the classroom, the sport, the organization, whatever else we may be interacting, cafeteria? It's like being a part of a club, because where do I sit and how do I interact and who do I speak to? Are my friends there during this time frame? All those things that you just shared actually is part of that, right?
Yes, yes.
Great, thank you for
I
sharing
hear
that.
you. Absolutely, absolutely.
How
I only have-
essential that is to self-esteem.
Yeah, and your sense of, that sense of belonging is
It's
huge.
like, yeah.
We have 1 minute before the meeting is over. We had a few more slides just about essentially belonging, and there's some literature that the school district, Shelley put together with Tom Landers and some other folks, especially just for anyone, if it's healthcare providers, parents, anyone who's living with, working with, caring about, and loving LGBTQ plus individuals or youth. And it's, if you go to the next slide, or actually go back to maybe? Yeah, there's just some local data and just some resources on how to support folks, because that is obviously one of the highest risk populations in Longmeadow. There was a slide just a couple slides back, just as far as data. Right, I keep one more. There we go. This one I find, just as far as gender identity, cis female is such a risk factor on its own, which it's again, in the outside world, it mirrors, right? To identify as a woman, there's just so many more barriers. If you look at cis male, way lower rates of depression, anxiety, suicidality, and eating disorders. Cis female is the pink, it's way higher, and then even higher is someone who doesn't identify as cis. So,
and this is high school?
This is high school, yeah.
Are these percents or counts?
These are percentages. So, of all the people who identify as other in Longmeadow in Longmeadow High School, 72% of them have reported depression in the last month. Same with anxiety, almost 3/4 of them.
Over half suicidality.
Yeah. or have suicidal, exactly. And again, that will mirror in American data too, but it's just so stark to see for local high school.
I apologize, but I don't know this, and I don't want to walk away from not asking this question. Suicidality is the feeling that I should have never been born?
No, it's
Or
like
that
I'm thinking of ending my life. Any
Okay.
thoughts of ending your life? Great question. And that's it for our data. I respect your time. If you got to go home, please do. If you want to stick around, we can have some more discussion. Our next meeting is planned for March 19th, my birthday, Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Bring gifts.
Right here.
Bring the cake.
He planned that.
Didn't they?
Really? This Andrew? Oh my God, we're the same age.
What's your middle name?
I didn't. I should have known you were a Pisces, Andrew. Should have known.
St. Joseph.
Yeah. Oh, I'm Martin. Martin DePorres.
No, this is my
We'll talk about middle names if you want to stick around. I really appreciate you coming out tonight, and keep up the great work making Longmeadow such a wonderful place to raise kids.
And thank you, LCTV.
Thanks LCTV and Brian Kazaska and the team.
So does anything, like when you see more than 50% of people are suicidal?